Hey, chemistry. I want to walk you through how to convert between meters and nanometers. So when we are doing a conversion, which we will do more of second semester, we always are going to use a conversion factor, and we're going to set this up the same way. So I want to walk you through how I want you to set up this conversion, because we're going to draw on this format next semester when we get into more conversions and converting between chemical quantities. So when you set this up, you're always going to start with the thing you're given, which is the thing you want to get rid of the unit. Okay, now you're going to multiply that given thing by a conversion factor. And we'll talk more about the conversion factor in just a second. And when you multiply by a conversion factor, see, the magical thing is it actually changes your unit without changing the quantity that you started with. So if you start with a specific height, it's going to change the unit that height is communicated in, like say inches to feet or meters to centimeters, but the actual length of your thing is not going to change. And so you'll get the answer in a new unit, but the same amount. So that's what a conversion is. That's how a conversion is different than just an equation, right? In an equation, we may change the amount. You take 5 trees, you multiply them by 10, and you get a different amount of trees. Well, we're not doing that in a conversion. In a conversion, we just want to change the unit, but we want to keep the amount the same. And this is where the conversion factor comes in. So the conversion factor becomes very important because the conversion factor is going to be equal or maybe equivalent to 1. And so by multiplying by 1, you're not actually going to change the thing you're talking about. You're not going to change your amount. We're just going to change the unit. So it has to be equal or equivalent to 1. It has to have 2 units, the one you want and the one you don't want. So you can get out of one and into the other. And because it's equal to 1, that means the top is going to be equal to the bottom. They may be communicated in different units, but they're going to be the equal or equivalent amounts. Okay, so let me give you an example to this. This might be a good chance to pause the video and take down some notes if you need to. Here we go with the example. All right, if I have 470 nanometers and I want to get that out of nanometers and into meters, I would say I'm going to convert 470 nanometers into meters. I want to multiply it by a conversion factor. Now, the conversion factor is going to have the unit that I don't want on the bottom. So I don't want nanometers anymore. The unit that I don't want is going to go on the bottom. And then the unit that I do want is going to go on the top. So I do want meters. It's going to get me out of nanometers into meters. Now, the reason we're going to put nanometers on the bottom is because by doing this, if I have nanometers times nanometers over meters, I have the same thing on the top and the bottom. If I ever have the same thing on the top and the bottom, it's equal to 1. Even if I have x over x, it's still equal to 1. And so nanometers over nanometers is equal to 1. It reduces out of my equation, and I'm just left with meters. If I flipped that, let me show you what would happen. If I had nanometers on the top, what I would end up with is nanometers times nanometers, which is nanometers squared, over meters. And that's not what I want in the end. Okay, so you have to make sure you get your units set up correctly. All right, so now that I know what unit I want on the top and the bottom, I need to put in numbers to make the top equal to the bottom, because remember, this is my conversion factor. It has to be equal to 1 so that I'm not changing the value of my measurement. I'm not changing the length. I start with 470 nanometers. I want to end in 470 nanometers, just in a different unit. I'm not going to change the value. I just want to change the units. Okay, so how are meters and nanometers related? The way that I go about this is I think, which one's bigger, a meter or a nanometer? And I give that thing a 1. Meters is bigger. It's going to get the 1. Now I think, how many nanometers in 1 meter? And hopefully you remember back a couple weeks for when we were talking about the SI units, and you remember that there's 1 billion nanometers, 1 billion, or a 1 with 9 zeros, in 1 meter. 1 billion nanometers in 1 meter. So now you plug this into your calculator. You're going to plug in 470 times the numerator times 1 divided by the denominator, or 1 billion. So you can type that in as 1 billion like this, or you can type that in as 1 I guess. 1 times 10 raised to the 9, or 1e9. All of those would work. And then you hit the equal sign, and you should get your answer. Which should equal this, or 4.70 times 10 to the negative 7th nanometers. So that's your number. Let's just go back and double check that we have gotten the right unit. I have nanometers on the top, nanometers on the bottom. They reduce out to equal meters. Okay, so that's how you're going to set up your conversion between nanometers to meters. Let me just write it out one more time without all the extras. So 470 nanometers times your conversion factor that has nanometers on the bottom, meters on the top. And there's 1 meter is equal to 1 billion nanometers. So your answer is 4.70 times 10 to the negative 7th meters. And that's how you're going to set up your conversions between nanometers and meters. For your lab, you're going to write this out, and you must handwrite it. Attach a picture to that lab document. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you in class.